Okay, so that might be people go, what? What are you talking about? Mining. Okay, so some of you are very new to crypto. Some of you might know everything about crypto. So we're going to do all of that on this show today. We have two guests with us today, and our guests, we're going to not use last names just in case. I don't know what you guys are doing. But we have Dan and Jack. So they're here. Say wave to the audience. There you are. Wherever they are, right? Okay, so we're going to talk to these guys about specifics about mining. But first of all, we're just going to talk about what is mining. Okay, so you can listen to past shows. Like our last show, we talked specifically about coins and tokens and how to create a wallet and what the blockchain is and why we have a blockchain. But so we're just going to skim on that. So in your own words, please tell us, each of you, what is mining? You want to go first, Dan?
Sure. So mining is a way of keeping up the network and approving the transactions that go through the network with dedicated machines.
Okay, and what's your version of that, Jack?
Yeah, mining would be basically maintaining a decentralized network that contains the data of everyone's financial information that is shared in public.
So basically what we talked about is that there's a blockchain, which is what all of these currencies, let's say, are and tokens are kept on. And there's the coders, right? You guys interrupt me if I'm wrong, but there's the coders and the programmers that create these coins that then go on the blockchain. And then there's the miners that keep this blockchain going. So each miner has what they call a node. And basically it's on their computer, I would think. Your machines that you mine on are connected to the blockchain through your computer? Or tell us a little bit more about the nodes themselves and how it interacts with the blockchain.
So basically what it is that it depends on what you're mining. So some of the wallets that you use are going to be like core wallets that require you to store the entire blockchain on your computer. Other ones are just you're mining into a pool, which is a group of machines all together, and then the reward is given according to how many shares in that hour or that day or whatever the time period, the block period is, that you had accepted by the pool.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered that one.
So, okay, so let's say I'm just new to this and I'm envisioning, so some of the coins or tokens, which we talked about that last time, the difference, but we'll talk a little bit more about that too, are mined on different types of equipment. So one of the things, or at least a couple of things we're going to be talking about today when we get a little bit more involved in this is the current issues around that, where like when I first started in 2012, people were only mining Bitcoin, okay? And that Bitcoin was mined on, when you first started, you could mine it on your computer because the hash power, the energy that you used wasn't, as significant to get the reward, meaning hit the algorithm. And then it evolved to game cards or GPUs or things like that people are still using now for tokens. But then now, in order for you to mine Bitcoins, you have to have what they call ASICs, or, it has evolved over time into getting more and more powerful equipment in order to mine Bitcoin specifically. So just to know, which coins are you guys mining right now, or tokens?
Right now I'm mostly mining Ethereum and other Ethereum-based tokens. I'm constantly looking into new white papers and new coins, early projects, and that's like a very exciting and fun thing of mining, is to do your research, and you get to learn the landscape and you can spot projects that you think will succeed or fail, and that's a large part of this game.
fun?
I'm pretty much the same way. When we first got into it, Bitcoin was a little bit out of our the realm of possibility because we started so small. So we started with Ethereum and ERC20, which is like Ethereum-based tokens. And now I'm kind of in between Equihash tokens and Ethash tokens. So it's kind of like split 50-50. But lately I've been kind of upset with the news from Ethereum. So I'm thinking of moving away from it personally.
Okay, so what's Equihash? I'm not familiar with that.
Equihash would be like Zcash or Zencash, and it would be that algorithm. And like you said, the different components mine better at different algorithms. So the majority of my farm is GPU. I would say like 90% is GPU, and NVIDIA cards are the best cards for Equihash, and that's the cards that I usually get.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, are Equihash still on the Ethereum blockchain, or is it a different blockchain?
It's a different blockchain.
Do they each have their own blockchain now?
Yes.
Is that how it's working? Okay, so there are the ERC20 tokens that are on Ethereum's blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's Bitcoin, which is on the Bitcoin blockchain, and now there are other coins or tokens, now I'm confused to know what to call them, that are running on their own blockchains. So the ones that are running on their own blockchains, like Zhash and Monero, are they actually each have their own blockchain?
So yeah, they each have their own blockchain. They do mimic each other. All the blockchain, the information that's a blockchain is pretty much open source, so you can go on GitHub and kind of download and make your own. So they do, fork off each other, and, maybe you'll like something from Bitcoin, which is like SHA-256, and then you like something from Equihash, and then you can make something together, which is what Zencash is. It's a fork off of both those blockchains. So they basically just copy the things they like from it and improve on the things they don't.
Okay, so that's another whole topic because I love all of this. And I just want to say that, again, last week we talked about hash power and what you need in order to actually get awards on these blockchains. So right now, I think there is a lot to talk about. I don't want to say competition-wise, but I would imagine each one of these coins. Do you call them coins or tokens, just so I know?
I call them coins.
Yeah, I usually just call them coins.
Okay, good. Each one of these coins then are vying for the number of miners out there that will keep, I would imagine, their blockchain going. Is that pretty correct in saying that? So since it takes a lot more hash power to get the award, which is the algorithm, hit the algorithm for Bitcoin, this ASIC equipment, there's always still more people interested in going even farther. Like I just read an article about Intel coming up with a patent that they're going to come out with a chip that will be 35% less electricity usage and all these things. So do you think there has been, again, last week we talked about these other coins being 50% of the market right now, where Bitcoin is 50%. Do you see where there's just a few people, not a few, but whoever's using or mining Bitcoin, it's more and more people are now mining these other coins. So when they talk about ASIC being used now for these other coins, and that's a big controversy right now, do you know if those people that are currently using ASIC right now are also mining these other coins, or are they just mostly mining Bitcoin?
There's a lot of different kinds of miners. Some people will acquire machines, plug them in, and not think about it unless there's like an emergency situation. And then there's others that are more active and they keep up with the different coins that come out and the rises and falls of the markets, and they're playing it more. And I think they probably are sticking to what they know, which are those ASIC machines. GPUs, it's a different setup. It's also a far less noisy setup, which is why people will run these things in their houses. And an ASIC machine is compared to a jet engine. It's not really a home device. So if they do switch to these other Ethereum-based coins, the developers are going to switch their algorithms. So if you have a GPU, you'll be able to to switch onto that new algorithm, and an ASIC, which is designed for one algorithm, will then be obsolete, or you'll have to, switch to another coin. And that's basically the game that's going on right now.
So yeah, I'm not anti ASICs. I'm anti the one company that provides the ASICs, which is Bitmain. And the reason that I'm anti that is, I feel like they're controlling the industry. They amass about 30% of the network power for the top 2 coins right now, the top 3 coins, and now they're moving into Ethereum. And what people don't realize is when Bitmain creates a new machine, they do extensive testing on it, which means they're mining on the machines that they're selling to you. So you're technically buying used machines after they create a more powerful one, and your machines are obsolete within 8 months when you buy Bitmain equipment. And you also have to just basically wire money to China and hope you get something and go through that process. So I'm pro GPU only because of the resale value, and also I just basically like making the machines. I feel like plug and play is a little bit too easy, that you need to have a little bit of a skill set to mine. And I'm not saying it's a difficult skill set. If I learned it, anyone can learn it. But I'm very anti-ASICs. I do own ASICs, not to say that I don't. I do own ASICs, but don't like the company that produces it because they take the decentralization away from this whole ecosystem.
So is it Bitmain that makes ASICs then? I didn't realize
They're
that.
not only the ones that make ASICs, but even the other companies that make ASICs, when you get their machines, they look like Antminers. So they're getting it from the same source, and it might even be Bitmain under another company name, but there is one company in Boston, and they are the creator of a Saya coin, and they have a miner that's coming out. And once they come out with that miner, they're probably going to tweak the algorithms for both the Cred and Saya so that Bitmain can't mine it anymore. So I'm pro that company.
Yeah, well, I have Saya coin, so I'm happy about that. Okay. So, do you have any opinions about that, Jack?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Bitmain. I think the whole point of this is that it's decentralized and that it's approachable by almost anyone. And you might need a, $300 or $400 GPU to start really hashing on a coin. But really, any computer, you can download a wallet and get started. And a lot of the wallets have built-in background miners even now, so you don't have to download scary mining software or whatever. You can just download a regular wallet and run mining software in the background when you're playing solitaire or doing whatever at work. And that's pretty interesting to me, because now we're seeing the concept of mining go from GPUs, CPUs, now it's on hard drives. There's, storage-based coins where if you have hard drives sitting around, you can connect them to a network, and you'll store a network's worth of data on it, and they're not as profitable as a GPU, but it's less, moving parts and stuff, so they're likely to just run forever.
Wow, that's awesome, because I've wanted to mine, but when I got in, we had data. We eventually had 5 data centers, around, and a lot of people doing it. And at that time, Antminers, I think, were the popular thing, and equipment, again, just to be specific. And the person, I don't know if you guys were around then, Butterfly Labs, or if you had heard of Butterfly Labs, and then there was about maybe 3 or 4 other equipment makers, and they couldn't keep up with the demand, and they ended up going bankrupt and kept millions of dollars that we had given them and everybody else, and so it was a mess at that point. So Bitmain, I guess now, well, if you haven't figured that out, they're from China. I heard that they were moving to Canada, though, so I didn't realize they had, a monopoly like that on the market. So that's an issue. So I guess it's a good thing, then, that Intel and other people are coming out, right, to have some competition.
Samsung, apparently, is also in the process of making ASICs chips as well. And I think you touched upon Intel is coming out with a new nanometer technology that's going to go to 7. And that should, like you said, about 35% more power and less power draw electrically, which is going to be really good for everyone. But everyone's going to have to rebuy all their equipment. So if you have a $50,000, $60,000 farm, you got to sell that equipment off and reinvest, and you don't know what the prices are going to be when new technology comes out. It might be $200 more than your original purchase per
So
card.
do you think they're actually going to create a, well, when I read, I thought a chip might mean you could fit it into something existing. No, because they put a patent on it. That's the thing. I mean, obviously they're going to do that. But, again, when I got into this, it was more about activism, like, great, these miners all over the world are doing this, and, they're going to pay their rent with it. Because people ask me, wow, you must be a millionaire, because you have, or gazillionaire, because you got in when you were getting paid when Bitcoin was $160. Well, at the time, it was all about using it. It wasn't about hoarding it like people are doing now, treating it like a stock where, oh, yeah, I just wanted the investment to go up. At the time, it was going to supplant the existing banking systems, and everybody was going to start using it for that until the fees went up. So, speaking of fees, let's talk about that, because that's how miners get paid, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Jack? Tell us how you get paid.
Yeah, so when one person wants to send an amount of coin to another person, there is a tax on that transaction, and they're basically paying the network to perform a secure transaction for them. And, the fees are pretty nominal. It's usually a small percentage of what you're sending, and it's usually a lot better than Western Union.
So let's say there's just say there's a million nodes out there, and the one transaction goes through all of those nodes. Does that fee get split by all those miners, or how does it work? Oh, the miner that actually gets the award gets all the fees.
Yeah, well, or the pool, right? If it's a pool of miners, and then based on how many shares you get a breakdown of that.
Who handles all that computation?
The people that engineer the mining pools, and they take a 1% fee usually, somewhere in that range, and that's a pretty cool, that's a cool industry, and that's something that grew into $1 billion industry since the initial Bitcoin boom. And now there's things like NiceHash where you don't even have to mine, and you install software on your computer. They determine what the most economic thing to mine is, and then you get paid a flat rate, so you're not making nearly as much as if you're learning, but it's also something that's plug and play, which a lot of people are looking for.
And he touched up on NiceHash. I don't use NiceHash. I mean, I did when I first. I think it's one of those crutches when you first start out, because it's so easy and it switches algorithms for you. But I think as you go further, you're probably going to move away from NiceHash because you see that your rewards aren't the best. But on the other hand, if you do want to be paid in Bitcoin, I know there is a new pool called Mining Pool Hub, which you can do auto switch. So basically, you can switch what algorithm you want to be paid in. But if you go to NiceHash, they pay you in Bitcoin. So you can technically mine Bitcoin with GPU. You're not mining Bitcoin. What you're doing is you're just selling your hash power, and they're paying you in Bitcoin. So you can technically still mine Bitcoin with GPU instead of ASICs if you want to get away from the ASICs.
But you don't find that it's as lucrative that way?
Well, you're going through a third party. They got to make some money. They're
Right.
a for-profit company, so it's not like they're doing you a favor. They're selling, cloud mining to other people, so they have to make some sort of money from it. So you're not getting the same thing as if, let's say you're mining Ethereum for them. If you went and you downloaded Claymore and just were mining Ethereum straight to your computer, you would probably get a little bit more rewards than you would through NiceHash, because they're taking a percentage, which is higher than the fee of the pools.
Right. That makes sense, because I also, in the beginning, when Antminers was the thing, or just coming out, I invested in a meetup, an Arizona meetup, that they were going to put together, some machines in mine. So I gave them $500, and then the price went down, and then they said they couldn't be profitable anymore. So basically, I lost that. And then later, I went into another mining pool that was bigger with more machines, and like the ones that are out there now, where you can just pay and monthly or upfront and be in theirs. And basically, I lost. That company went out of business too, and I lost a Bitcoin at that point. Was probably worth about $1,000 now. Of course, that's a lot more money that I lost. So I was leery to get into any more of these pools, tell you the truth. When Bitcoin is at 20,000 like it was in, December, of course, when you get 12.5 Bitcoin every time the thing, cashes in, that's significant. But when back then it was 160, so of course, or even 1,000. I heard recently somebody say that Bitcoin had to be 7,000, which is about where it's at right now, in order for, their mining operations to be profitable. Do you guys, obviously, you're not mining Bitcoin, but you must have some target values also that you need in order to make money.
A lot of people will look at their per day income at current market prices, and people will advise against that because it can be very discouraging if you have $1,000 GPU and it makes $3 a day. But I don't look at the daily earnings so much. I more try to look at the market and how it's growing and staying on top of new technology. That to me is really more important.
So you're in it for the long haul, basically. You're looking at this as an over time kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I started mining on a personal gaming computer, and every piece of equipment that I can get my hands on, I keep wanting to learn more of the process. So I may end up wanting to do development and more into the software side of things also.
Great.
Yeah, I would say that for as a word of advice for people, I would say to completely, if you go to what to mine or you're using the calculator for, it's like he said, the price fluctuates. Something that you could have been mining months ago was 80 cents worth, could be worth $300-400 today. So I would go with units of the coin. So excuse me. So if you can get a lot of units a day, that's way better than getting 0.001 Bitcoin. Because, yeah, Bitcoin can travel to 20 again, but the percentages between the price now and 20,000 is not going to be as high as, let's say, you get a coin that's not even worth a penny, and then it goes to 20 cents. And a lot of people, strike things like that when they get a project that first came out, and they're able to get 1,000 units a day. And then by the time it gets popular, you've already amassed so many that you basically mooned it. So I think that that's really more important, is to get units versus looking at the USD, because the USD price is going to fluctuate every single second almost.
Yeah, exactly. And people new to this, they don't realize that. So, of course, I have people that are new literally asking me, when's it going to go up again? I'm like, give me a crystal ball. I mean, this is the whole thing. If you've been in it since day one, you watch the fluctuation, this is a new technology. It's going to be 10 or 20 years before anybody really understand, if they could ever figure out what's going on, because there are going to be millions of coins one day. Excuse me. So when you talk about, you mentioned a wallet. Last week we talked about a wallet and how to create a wallet. So from a mining standpoint, I know in the day when we were doing it, we used to have the major wallets. We were in Mt. Gox. We were in, Bitstamp. All these people, we had wallets in when we were mining, and our coins went in there. And, are you taking your coins and putting them into cold storage now? And if so, how do you hold your coins or your wallets? What are you using? Because, that's security is a big issue.
I use a Nano Ledger, which is, I think, the most popular wallet to use.
That's a hard one. It's
a hardware wallet, and I highly recommend it. But the core wallets that are created by each coin that comes out, I like the core wallets as well, especially if it's going to be a coin. I mean, this might be a little bit ahead of the listeners, but if it's a master node or a secure node, you'll only be able to do master nodes or secure nodes on core wallets, because you have to store the entire blockchain, and the hardware wallets are just cold storage, so you're not actually online with the coins.
Can you mention some names of those wallets, like the master and the secure?
So, for instance, I mine this project that I'm into. I'm maybe saying it wrong. It's Ubiq, UBIQ, and they have a wallet called a Pyrus. So basically, you download this Pyrus wallet, and that's how you would transfer. But most of the core wallets will communicate with your Nano, your hardware wallet, where you can connect them to each other and transfer them through each other without any kind of risk.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think the type of wallets he's talking about are ones that will have to basically download the blockchain anytime you open it. So you could deposit money in there, close it, leave it for a couple months, and then when you want to access that money, you might have to wait 30 minutes or something to download the blockchain again. I know Monero's wallet is like this, and that's a pretty secure and popular one. Daedalus is another one that is like that, where your initial download might be 4 or 5 hours depending on your computer, because you have to download the public ledger. But those are the most secure and popular ones for a Windows system or something. But I also have a Nano Ledger. It's a very good device.
Great. Okay, so just in mentioning between the two of you, some of the words you've used that I think the listeners might be interested in knowing about. When you mention farm, that means, Dan, you have a number of pieces of equipment that you're, keeping in a location that is basically called a farm, right? Is that the terminology?
Yeah, usually. So, I'm sorry. Usually
Have some water.
we build rigs, and each rig will have a certain amount of pieces of equipment on it. I basically like to make 8-card rigs because I find them the most stable. We have done 12 and 13, but I don't find the stability as well. So yeah, a farm would be all of your rigs put together in one place or multiple places.
And when you do that, are you just like, is it all of that power is being used at the same time to get one reward, or are they all working individually on different coins?
So it depends on the operating system you use. Some operating systems will allow you to split up the card. So you have two manufacturer of cards, NVIDIA and AMD. So depending on if you have AMD or NVIDIA, you'll use a different type of software like Claymore or DTS,
Phoenix Miner,
just any kind of software that's actually mining it for you, that's connecting you to the pool, and you can have you can either have a bunch of cards on different algorithms, or you can have a rig on a different algorithm, or you could put all your rigs on one algorithm. It really, it's like whatever you believe in or whatever you want to do. The system we usually like to have is we have a couple of rigs that are just staying on one algorithm for a certain period of time, and then we have a couple of rigs that free float. And when some new project comes out that we believe in, we either donate hash power because we believe, they could be not even on an exchange yet because they're not worth anything. But if we believe in the project, we're gonna mine it just to get the coins and to support the network.
Awesome.
Yeah, there is a cool kind of creative aspect to it. Like, you're not just building machines to turn on and go. Like, you are connecting with these networks of real people that are working on real projects that, like, one of the more fun things to do is to read the press releases and see, like, what new technologies are coming out. And a lot of times, like any business, these things go under, the CEO disappears, but a lot of the technology is, really groundbreaking. And so I don't think the negative side of it really takes away from it that much.
That's the fun part for me too. I mention that to people. It's like, not even I didn't realize on the mining side it was the same, but for me, as looking at what coins to invest in, or I'm excited about being able to look at the technologies and see what they're doing, because I liken it to the internet. In the 90s, when that was happening and people were putting websites up, you didn't really have a way to find the website or tell people what your website was. But now there's so many ways to find out what these new technologies are and what people are doing and how the industry's changing and what's going to happen in the future. And I always say that this is the future. What do you think about that? I mean, how do you feel all this is going to change? Most people here in New York, what I've found is they're interested in the blockchain technology more than they're interested in the whole, coin or token. Well, I understand the banks, of course, they're going to be interested in just doing private blockchains. But I mean, in general, it seems like people are more enthusiastic about how the blockchain is going to change the world. When, to me, the blockchain is, a general, it's a ledger. It's about the people that are running the blockchain or who's doing what and creating technology that's going to really shift and change the world. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest financial innovation since the stock market was created, but nobody is alive from when the stock market was created, so no one has a reference point. It's just this thing that we grew up with, and people are really starting to notice now. I mean, every huge bank is sending research guys to crypto meetups to try to figure out what people are doing. They're all trying to put desks together right now. They're scrambling, and it's exciting and really cool to see what this industry is going to turn into, because it does have a chance to really make, like, finance, investing, and managing your personal finances at home. It makes that a possibility, which is, like, groundbreaking and a pain point for a lot of people worrying about, like, where's my retirement money, like, how am I going to invest this? But, like, having the ability to do things like that securely at home is really revolutionary.
And and I also I really like where this is going with the decentralization aspect, and I really believe in the projects that stay core to that they'll do whatever, like XMR Monero, you know. Bitmain came out with a machine. They said we don't want ASICs. They forked off it within like 14 days. They were very vocal. The lead dev, Fluffy Pony, which is Ricardo, he's amazing. He's all about the community. He listens to what the community said, and I like projects like that, and I support projects like that, because I think that everyone that gets into this mining thing in the beginning thinks they're going to become a millionaire within 3 months and drive a Lambo, but the truth is that's where you come in. But then once you start seeing the space and seeing what everyone is bringing to it, you kind of see the future, and you're like, I want to be a part of this. I don't want to be just, you know, someone that's saying, oh, this isn't real, this is a bubble, this is this. Just people say that because they don't understand it, and they don't have the coins to, you know, to become wealthy off of it. So they like, oh, I want to be wealthy too, so they're going to talk down, you know, and that does drive the market a lot into the negative. But I really believe in the projects. I believe in the future, and I think this is like the way to go. And it's also a good way, I feel, to keep creative content to the creators. So it's not only like financial, it's also like, you know, like YouTube takes a lot of the percentages from YouTubers that are the ones that are actually driving, you know, the ads, and to get that and give it to the people that create content instead of to these large corporations, I'm really all for it.
Yeah, a lot of this is about, well, obviously Facebook, Google, all these people have done a lot to help get everybody's word out and be able to find it. But I think the next generation is all about decentralization, being able to own your own data, sell your own data if you even want it sold. And I mean, that's another whole topic, the whole AI thing and what's going on with that. We don't have a time to talk about all of that, but let's talk. There's a few other things I want to talk about. One is, you know, again, from the beginning, how did you get into this? How did you get educated? You know, people getting in. I mean, obviously, we just talked about YouTube. That's probably the best way to find how to do this. And then we're going to get into more specifics about the forks, because when we mention forks, I mean, there's a whole other thing going on around that. So we want to talk about that. But just again to say, how did you get into this? How did you find out about it? How long have you been doing it? I know some of you have been doing it longer than others. And, you know, how did you educate yourself?
So I've heard of Bitcoin from when it first came out, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about computers until about January of last year. I have a friend who maintains a mine for a company, like a professional mine, not like, you know, home miner. And he told me about it, and he told me, I asked him, Bitcoin at the time was 1,200. I wanted to do something in the space, and he told me it was too late, that I missed the boat, that I shouldn't mine Bitcoin, it's the electricity cost is, and then he told me about Ethereum, and he said, this new coin, Ethereum, it's about $4 right now, and you should mine it. So we started mining that first, and we went off of that, and then obviously Ethereum blew up by, you know, July, and then again in January. So that's basically how we got into the space. But I come from I didn't know anything about computers. I didn't know anything. I went on YouTube. I went on Reddit. I went on Twitter, Bitcoin Talk Forum, like basically the same things. And then there's a couple really great YouTubers out there. I don't know if I should say their names, or
Fine.
There's, you know, Bits Be Tripping and Voscoin, and there's like a bunch of guys there that really know what they're doing, and they teach people through live streams, and basically what you learn from them is not really how to do it, it's how to troubleshoot, because this whole thing is about troubleshooting, because I've never built a rig and it just worked instantly. There's always an issue, there's always a card or two that don't want to cooperate, so it's really about troubleshooting, and that's where I learned troubleshooting, is YouTube basically.
Yeah, I mined a little bit like 5 years ago, just because I was programming for iPhones and had hardware, and just dropped it, didn't think too much of it. And a couple months ago, a client of mine at my dog food business was interested in mining, and I looked into it more and started mining on my home computer, and have built you know, some small rigs now, and looking to keep growing. And basically the same YouTubers that he mentioned were super helpful, and like anytime I had a question, it was really easy to look up a forum and see someone who had the same problem that I had a year before with the same exact equipment, and that really makes things easy.
So let's talk a little bit about electricity. I know with the ASICs that use a ton of electricity, do these GPUs also, or is that kind of, let's talk about that.
So the ASICs, some of them do. There are companies coming out now that have. Baikal is one of the companies that have miners that are a little more efficient, and they're pulling about 500, 800 watts instead of most of the AMP miners are going to be between 800 and 1347, something like that, 1400. So it is pulling. It also depends on what you're. I don't know if it's too technical, but if you're doing 110 versus 240, what kind of electrical you have. That's what it pulls. So if you have the 240, 220, 240, you're definitely getting more efficiency, and you can fit more miners into a space versus 110. So they pull a lot. We try to get the efficiency down. It matters on. There's like so many factors. So the power supply unit that you use, there's ratings to it. So if you get the highest rating, like titanium or platinum, they're more efficient than if you get like gold or ones that aren't rated at all. So it really depends on the equipment, and then it also depends on the cards. You can definitely underclock them, which means you're just basically undervolting the cards. You're giving them, like, you're saying, okay, I only want you to have 75% of your full power. So you can work with it, but it's going to get to a point where you're going to freeze the machine out, and you're going to get kicked off the pool, and you're going to have to restart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a lot of the cards are very customizable. Like, people will overclock, underclock, and in my experience, I've got like mostly AMD cards, so those are pretty popular for people to underclock. But the power draw is huge, and I'd say that like if you're going to build something to experiment on, you're probably fine. But if you're going to have like more than 6 cards on a rig, that probably needs its own circuit. Depending on where you live and construction stuff. But if you're actually going to be building like more than 2 rigs, you're probably going to want 220 or 240 volt power, and that's something that everyone should consult a friend who's an electrician or someone, or your superintendent, because it's pretty easy to start a fire if you're gonna overpower your system like that.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you newbies out there, be careful. So these things are important for you to know, and you can find out from these YouTube guys or other ones that we've talked about in the past. So anyway, let's talk about forks, because this is a whole nother thing, and it's really in the news right now, and let's get into that. First of all, what is a fork? How does a fork happen? How do you even know about it in order to join that fork? Specifics about forks in general, just from a basic standpoint.
I'm going to let the developer talk about it, and then I'll steal some of his stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are soft forks and hard forks. A soft fork would be like an optional thing. Like, I like a project that someone else is doing, I'm going to soft fork off of their code, and anyone who is a part of that project has the ability to opt in, and they'll get oftentimes rewarded for joining that. Hard forks will be forced. Those are the original developers changing the code because something is urgent or important. A security flaw, changing an algorithm to avoid an ASIC. There's a lot of hard forks are just regular updates. They're just advancing the code, because most of these are open source projects that PhDs and mathematicians around the world are working on for fun, and it's not paid, and the network runs all decentralized fees, and the development process itself is like a very cool ecosystem. But with the soft forks and hard forks, a lot of them end up being in the news because people will get what looks like free money. If you have Bitcoin and they hard fork, or they soft fork to a Bitcoin Cash, you got rewarded, and certain wallets would use your private keys to pull that and then give it to you, and other wallets, because they're holding your keys, whenever there's a fork, they get that reward. So that's another incentive to use the ledger or a core wallet that we spoke of, because you're the one holding the keys, which is an additional responsibility. But these forks they make it so the more that you do, the more rewarding the whole experience is.
So let's use that example of the Bitcoin Cash. Anyone that had Bitcoin at the time, if that wallet, let's just say matched it you also had that same amount in Bitcoin Cash. Now, if you had your private keys, which again we talked about last week, so you have to go back and listen to the radio show if you want more specifics. If you had it in a Nano wallet, how would you get that matched? How does that happen? If it's not, in a wallet where it's easily found to match, or
The developers usually will provide links, and you through their software you'll plug your keys in and it'll connect the account. I actually haven't done that personally. I've seen it on wallets where people have had their Bitcoin pulled into Cash or whatever, but it is a process. But if you're used to reading developers' notes and keeping up to date on the software, it's an easy process.
where do you find those notes?
Usually the project will have a homepage, and then that homepage has links to a GitHub, and that's where all the good stuff is.
Okay, so that's what you do on your own. When you coins that you are mining, you keep up with their GitHub, and well, obviously you just keep up with what's going on with them.
Yeah, it's usually smart to read the software that you're downloading, especially when it's free. There's usually a catch, and that's like the environment I grew up in was MP3s, and that's really like my formal education for this was the Napster era. And basically, if you could have downloaded music back then, you could do this now.
That's awesome. Poor Napster, but okay. Anybody not know about Napster? I doubt it, but it didn't work for the guy who invented it. And I saw a really good movie about that, but he had all the right intentions, so hopefully he's doing something good now. I don't know, maybe you guys know.
Yeah, that guy Sean Parker's a billionaire. He's great.
Oh, well, good. Good for him.
He also helped start a small company called Facebook.
Oh, okay, good.
I think it worked out for him.
Yeah, it always. And he gets a lot of free advertising, too.
So like just to touch on what he said, there's definitely ways of keeping in touch. The devs are very open to the community on most of these projects. You can reach them directly. If you tweet at them, they'll tweet back. Definitely follow them on Discord. Definitely follow them on Telegram. Every kind of, not the typical social media like Facebook. They'll be on, more on the tech side, development side, social media. You can definitely follow them, and highly, highly recommend doing your own research and never download anything unless it comes directly from the website of the coin that you're using. A lot of people, GitHub, you can put whatever you want on GitHub. It's open source. So someone could put in something that you don't want on your computer. So I highly recommend just doing your research and using common sense before you download or install anything into your computer.
Well, that's good news, though. I mean, it's good news, meaning good to know that so every coin on their own website, they would have specific things that you can download from them versus off of their GitHub. Is that what you're saying? Because for what I understand, GitHub means it's open source and everybody can go add to what's happening, right? But you're saying there might be bugs or something.
So there's the developers will upload it to the GitHub of the company. So each company has their own GitHub. So they'll upload it, and you'll know it because it'll be uploaded by the developer's name. So like just to go back to XMR, Ricardo, anything by Ricardo is from XMR and no one else. So you safely can go and download anything in that GitHub that Ricardo posts because he's a core developer for XMR.
Okay. So let's talk about the current issues around these forks. So there's actually two going on right now, right? Monero, and then there's the discussion going on with Ethereum that for the A6 fork, they want to do a hard fork. But Vitalik Buterin, the one who actually created Ethereum, is kind of saying, don't waste your time doing that right now. We have so many other things that we have to do. So can we talk about both of those, Ethereum and Monero forks that are going on? And it's both around the ASICs, right?
Yeah, so what happened was Bitmain came out with a crypto night, which is the algorithm for XMR miner, and they did not like that. So they went and they hard forked off of it into something called Crypto Night V7. So that's basically what their decision was to stay away from ASICs because they want to be decentralized. They're a privacy coin. They don't want it to be in one. They don't want someone to hold 30% of their network power. So, and it's rightfully so. With Ethereum, I believe personally, it's a little bit of a mistake to think that Bitmain won't do anything malicious with the network. I don't. I know he wants to go to proof of stake, but if you're going to allow a company that can hold 30% of your network, accumulate coins before you get to proof of stake, then they're going to be controlling the proof of stake as well. So in my personal opinion, I think underplaying it or saying it's not important is a mistake, and that's really why I don't really want to support their network. But there are other coins that are going to fork off that are on the Ethereum network that don't have the same view as Vitalik does, and they feel like this is more serious. And on the other hand, he never said that they won't fork. He just says he doesn't think it's an issue. But I can tell you from the majority of miners that, I feel like it's a little bit like I contributed to his network when he needed me, and now when we need him, he kind of left us in the dust. And I don't appreciate that. I don't have that much hash that it will make a difference for them. But for me personally, this is more of like a idealistic stance where I don't want to contribute to Ethereum anymore, because it doesn't mean I'm not going to still collect it as an investor. I will, but I'm not going to, support the network, basically.
So I really like that. It seems like you really have, or miners really have a bond in a way, right? And you're still, which I said from the beginning, I was, for miners because I saw what they were doing and I appreciated it, like an activism thing. And they're still doing it, is what you're saying. Miners still stick together, and they're really still, a lot of them have that same mentality.
Well, I'm mining at a loss. I'm paying electric, I'm paying overhead. I've invested, almost $75,000 into equipment, and I pay every month the rent's due, every month the electricity's due. I have not shut off any miners. I keep mining even at a loss because I believe in the project and I believe in it long term. So I feel like if the majority of the people that support Ethereum want to fork off it, that they should have taken it a little bit more seriously, or they should have had a backup plan from the get-go. I mean, they could have saw this coming. I mean, it's not, it's kind of like it's either they're in on it or they're too stupid to realize it. But either way, I can't support that.
Can you do a fork? Is anybody just do a fork if all the miners say, I want to do a fork? First of all, I want to say the terminology here we're using is miners in two different ways. One, we're talking about human beings that are mining, like we've talked about. And then we're talking about those ASICs or those other GPU cards and things that are doing the work, machines that are doing the work, and they're called miners also.
We actually call them workers, so most of the time.
But when you just said miners, you put all your miners
like
on.
People like me.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Because you have other miners working with you?
No, I meant like I have a business partner, but I'm just saying, in the community, the mining community, the people that donate their hash for the reward, but still donate their hash to the network, I think the majority of people are not going to be happy with their decision to underplay what Bitmain stands for. I think that it's a very serious threat to mining, and I think that it's up to each coin to either fork off of it or create some sort of system where maybe you have two algorithms, one's just for ASICs, one's just for GPUs, or whatever the case might be. I still believe it. But like you said, anyone can fork. Like Bitcoin Cash was not done by Bitcoin. They did not agree with the fork.
Right.
A lot of I don't know how much you want to get into conspiracies, but a lot of conspiracies on the internet feel that Bitmain actually created Bitcoin Cash, and that is really why they only accept, because they used to accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, and USD. Now they only accept Bitcoin Cash. They don't accept Bitcoin or Litecoin anymore. They accept USD still, but they just want Bitcoin Cash. I don't know. It's hard to say what it is, if it's a conspiracy or someone else created, but like you said, anyone could create it. It's up to the people to support it. I can make a coin right now. If no one mines it, it'll just go away.
But if all the miners decided to do a fork off of Ethereum, and I'll support that and get over to that fork, that can be done too if you're not happy with it, right?
That'll be the natural reaction to anything that happens that hurts the mining community. The miners will just migrate to coins that are treating them better, basically, right? They're like refugees on the coins, and I think one of the big issues is that miners accumulate so much knowledge, and I really do respect the people on YouTube for teaching other people how to get into this, because if you mine a bunch of coins and no one else mines it, your coins are worth nothing. It is absolutely essential that people grow the network and understand what it's doing, and that just maintaining the network itself is a job, and whatever value you accumulate based on coin appreciation or whatever is kind of a side effect of maintaining this new financial network.
So let's talk about, what they call the 51% attack. So I understand it from a Bitcoin point of view, and I guess this could be, one of the reasons you don't want Bitmain and anybody else to have so much of the market. Is that also an issue with other coins, or is it just mostly Bitcoin? Or let's just talk about that. Let's talk about what it is and why.
The different coins run on different algorithms, and they have different security flaws, and a 51% attack would be someone accumulating the majority of the network and then being able to approve transactions that could be fraudulent. They could be totally made up. Right? It's kind of like if someone got majority in the House or the Senate and they could vote through whatever bills they want. Currently, the network's integrity is maintained by everyone who... My computers are constantly checking errors on his computers, and it's a group effort, and you get rewarded for finding these errors to make sure that the ledger is intact. And a 51% attack is a real threat, especially when machines are going up in countries where you have no idea who's controlling machines in China or North Korea or anywhere. And I feel a lot better knowing that there's machines in Jersey and Pennsylvania and stuff, and it's being maintained here, and not by like a nefarious dictator or something like that, or the mining company, which is most likely what's going on.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the rich getting richer, because if your ability to accumulate 51% on the network, you either you have a ton of miners, ton of money, whatever it is. So you don't want any one entity, especially when you're pitching this as a decentralized network. You don't want one entity to hold so much power, because, like you said, they can dictate different things. They can shut the network down. They can have malicious attacks on it. They can verify, transactions that aren't real. So there's a very serious threat to that, and we're trying to keep it decentralized, but like large mining facilities like Genesis Mining and stuff like that, they hold a lot of stuff. They are the first ones to get miners because they have insider contracts. They're not buying one or two machines. They're buying 1,000, 10,000, whatever. So they're buying directly from manufacturers. They're in Iceland, Genesis, so they're paying like a penny or two. Bitmain is in Mongolia. They're also paying a penny or two for electricity. So they're not really, the electricity is so cheap for them. They're making the machines themselves, basically, so that's cheap. And then on top of that, when they're done with it, they sell it back to you, a used machine that they claim is new, and they keep raising the price according to the fluctuation of the market. So, for instance, when Bitmain just came out with this E3 eTash machine that everyone's going crazy over, originally it's $800, and they limit it to one per person. Then a couple days later, it became 5 per person. And now it's $1,800 and unlimited amount. So they were waiting for the news because they got kind of screwed over on Monero, because they forked off of as soon as they released I think the first batch was like $9,000 for the miner. So people paid $9,000 for a machine they can't use. Cryptonite doesn't exist anymore. Only V7 exists. So they have a machine that is complete, and Bitmain didn't give anyone a refund. So they got a refund of everything except for $1,800. So everyone that ordered one of those miners got screwed out of $1,800 and now has a piece of equipment that's basically a giant paperweight, So, yeah.
So did those people that bought those machines blame Monero for doing the fork, or have you got any feedback from those guys?
I'm assuming that if you're able to buy a $9,000 machine, you're not like some supporter of Monero. You're just trying to make money.
Yeah, it's a hand in the honey pot kind of situation.
And when you try to make money, occasionally you're gonna, their Dash miner also didn't do too well. So Bitmain has screwed over people occasionally. I would have to say I only have two ASIC Bitmain miners, Saya miners, and one of them came broken, literally arrived broken, and had to send the card back to them, and I'm still waiting for it to get back. Yeah. So it's like when you only have one place to buy everything from, it's not a good look. Like, you want to have it spread out, Right.
That's the whole point, right? You want to have diversification, and so that you control the market your way. If you want to buy something that's less expensive or this and that, there's no competition in that if they're the only ones. So anyway, I'm glad that point came up, because we'll have to see what can be done about that. I mean, what can be done about that from the miner's standpoint? Can you guys come together and do something else? I don't know. Can you?
Yeah, people are constantly making new projects and new coins, and I think in the past 10 years we saw it go from one coin, it was Bitcoin, to now there's thousands of coins. We're going to see millions of coins soon. It's just a matter of time, and it's not that much time. And when it gets to the point where everyone might have their own coin, and then you have your own currency that fluctuates in value, and that's like, there's some really crazy and exciting projects out there. I know there's 42 coin, where there's only 42 coins that were minted, and it's a joke based on the Douglas Adams book, but like, that's just a hilarious one. And so they don't all have to be these like giant money making operations. They could be for specific industries. There's charity coins out there where the fees are getting donated to like a church or a homeless shelter and stuff. So there's a lot of potential for these projects, and we've just seen the very beginning of it.
Well, Dogecoin was a joke, right?
Yeah, that was the first one that I mined.
Yeah, so Dogcoin, of course, he has a dog food company.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're not going to get into too much about this, but, this whole tax issue now that's coming out, it seems to me that, when I first started, the IRS did come out and say that Bitcoin was a property. So we knew, in our company, we knew how to do our taxes. It's just like anything else. If you sold it, you had to go back like first in, first out, know what it cost when you mined it, what gain or loss you had when you sold it, and then, pay taxes on the difference. I can imagine if you're doing a lot of coins or you're doing this daily, it's got to be a nightmare. I mean, I used a huge spreadsheet off of our wallets and stuff, but do you have any information that you can give to our listeners how, if they are miners or going to be miners, how to handle their taxes without getting you guys in trouble?
It's really easy to keep track of everything because most of the miners actually will give you a log after every session, and so you've got all your files right there, and it's actually easier than doing taxes for most businesses because
cool.
the computer keeps such good records.
That's awesome.
What I feel is going to happen is they're going to come out with a penalty system, and you're going to have to pay the penalty because the manpower that it would take for someone to go through all the transactions and say, well, you actually accumulated 2011 coins instead of 2010 coins is going to be really, really difficult. And it's also going to be really, really difficult with the fluctuation price because right now the way the tax is written is you get charged at whatever rate you mined it at, but that rate can change a second after you mine it.
I know, that's the thing.
And then you also now get taxed when you sold it for capital gains. It depends how long the tax rate depends how long you have it. But then they are also saying it's a taxable event when you trade one cryptocurrency for another.
Right, which is another confusing thing to keep track of.
So actually for miners, it's pretty easy because like you said, there's going to be a whole spreadsheet from each wallet you can export out. But for someone that makes like 50 trades a day that is just a day trader, that's going to be really difficult for them to keep track of every trade that they made.
Okay, that's right. And
yeah.
I have to go right now because we're going to be offline pretty soon. But I really appreciate you guys being here. We could just talk all day. There's so much to say. Thank you so much for being here. And out there, tune in next week or, on our website, coffeetalk.co, to find out more about what's going on with mining and everything else around crypto. See you next time.